featured guest, DeFi Dad.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me.
Hello. So one of the first things, obviously, is we're calling you DeFi Dad. You prefer to use that instead of your real name. So why don't you help us understand what that's about?
And Lou, sorry, I'm just gonna make sure you all can hear me now. I just unmuted myself. All good?
Yeah, I can hear him fine. Annalise, you can hear him?
You guys can hear me? Everybody good? Great. Sorry.
Yeah, everybody can hear. There you go.
Yep, we can hear you.
Yeah, Lou, sorry. Can you ask me that one more time?
I was asking, DeFi Dad. Hold on a minute. If you can get off stage, thanks. I was asking, is DeFi Dad, obviously, you prefer to use that instead of your.
How do you pull up the camera?
If you could help us understand what that's about and how you've been doing that.
Yeah.
Hello.
It's just my pseudo anonymous Twitter username. About a year ago, I started heavily using DeFi apps, and I got really excited because I was working with them through the Ethereal Summit. I was talking with a lot of these founders about what they would want to speak about, and my background was working in SaaS companies, so I would normally be demonstrating software all throughout the day. And it just, kind of hit me what the hell am I doing? Not actually using these applications regularly. And then after I started to use a few of them, I quickly became addicted. And that's what sort of led me to think about, well, where does my skill set lie in this space? And I think it's about framing the idea of how you can use different DeFi applications. And so anyways, I guess DeFi Dad too it's a good name that stuck because a few years ago, I actually got into crypto because I had a new baby. And every night before I would put him to sleep, I would read all about crypto. And I kind of fell down the crypto rabbit hole with Bitcoin and Ethereum, just reading about crypto every night. So yeah, it's been only about 3 years, so I'm rather new to the space still compared to a lot of people. But it's kind of where my name, I guess, starts or originates from.
And how did you end up at Consensys?
Good point. So in late 2017, I had been reading a lot about crypto. I think I had bought a little bit of Bitcoin at that point, and I went to an Ethereal Summit, and I left work. I really enjoyed it. I learned, there we go. I'm back now. Okay, so what I was saying, Lou, is that in late 2017, here we go. The host has called you on, made you louder. There we go. Just making sure. You all can hear me still?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Yes.
Well, so the way I got started at Consensys was in late 2017. I had been reading still about crypto a lot. I had started to buy a little bit of Bitcoin, and I went to an Ethereal Summit. So I got to see all sorts of interesting talks. When I left there, I kind of had that epiphany that we've all had and said, I got to find a way to be in this space, or I got to turn this into a full-time job. And so I ended up, I would say I stalked Consensys for the next 6 months until they gave me a job. I just emailed everyone there I could get a hold of, and really got myself onto the marketing side of things. I felt like my background would help me to frame up how you can ultimately use all of the different tokens and applications that were being built with Ethereum and Bitcoin.
So what are the different roles that you've had over the last couple of years?
Yeah, so I mostly focused on being a marketing mercenary, I think is the best way to describe it. So I would hop from team to team working on any sort of marketing related issues. Normally it started with trying to create a story around what is it that what is the value that you are trying to offer to the world? What's the problem you're trying to solve? Who are the people that you should be targeting? And then what are the different channels that you might be able to reach those people? The interesting thing though was I only did that for about a year, and then I got kind of lucky. I always had a soft spot in my heart for Ethereal because I felt like it really confirmed getting me into this space or got me to commit to wanting to work in crypto. And one of the people was leaving the team. So I started building the lineup for Ethereal New York. And Yeah, just ever since then, I've worked full time on the Ethereal Summit, and now we are much like Aaron is here from CoinDesk. Very similar to Consensys. Everybody knows Consensys. It's an
Hey,
awesome
Aaron.
event. Normally, yeah, there you go, Aaron. Normally, Consensys is like the big event, of course, of New York Blockchain Week. Ethereal normally kicks off New York Blockchain Week, and so yeah, that's I work on that full time and think about the fact that we have this Ethereal virtual summit happening May 7th and 8th. So if any of you have ever wanted to attend a blockchain, Ethereum, or crypto conference, I would highly encourage go register for free online at etherealsummit.com. And we're going to have about 150 speakers on May 7th and 8th that you can enjoy, while chilling at home.
Wow. So, how many Ethereal Summits have you worked on?
So this will be my third. This was supposed to be my third that would happen in person, but because of the fact that we are all quarantined, we've got this really cool opportunity to host a virtual summit, which I think is really important, Lou, because we get to have folks from all over the world. I think there's a privilege to going to crypto conferences. They tend to be a little bit higher price. And I think it's really good if we all want to open. Hi. Hello.
Hey, if you could hop
Oh,
off
there we
stage,
go.
thanks. Yeah.
You got a great name, Boss Lady. That's a great name. Yeah, I think it's a really great opportunity. I think that everyone is dealing with the effects of being at home, but I think this is like one of the cool ways we can all connect, sort of zoom out and appreciate all of the progress in our space and, kind of get inspired for like why we all want to work in this space.
And so I know the last one I think was in Tel Aviv.
Correct. Yeah. Last one we did was in Tel Aviv. It normally, if any of you haven't ever been to an Ethereal, I mean, it's multiple stages with normally a few days of talks from 9 to 6. The thing that's really special about Ethereal, which I think is really hard about this virtual summit, is we've always put on very high production events. So it's a very pretty, artistic looking sort of area, lots of purples, of course, lots of rainbow colors in general. So it's a place you go and it feels like you're walking through an art museum. The problem is now we're all doing a virtual summit. And so we've been really thinking about how can we translate that sort of experience to something like this. And I think we've settled on the fact that, one, we're going to focus on the content. It's all about learning from our peers, getting inspired by other people who are doing great work in our space. I think the second thing though is trying to get people to engage. So this is a part of it. I think the plan that Lou and I have talked about is having you interview some folks in alt space, because I personally would rather be meeting people potentially in VR, rather than just watching a live stream the entire time. So,
yeah, this is, I think for the people certainly who have headsets, or you can come if you've got a PC. It's a little more of a struggle with them.
Yeah.
But hopefully there'll be a great meeting area for people to hang, in between speakers, or there's somebody speaking who maybe they're less interested in. So what are you most excited about in terms of the speakers you've gotten? What people will be talking about?
Yeah, I think of our lineup a lot like a music festival. There are those big names like there we go. We're real close there.
Well.
There you go. Oh, there you go. Yeah, no problem. I'd be doing the same thing.
Thanks, guys. Try to stay off the stage.
So some of the speakers I'm excited for. There's some of the more obvious names that we want to have there. Like, of course, everyone wants to hear from Vitalik. I mean, he's always exciting to have speak. I think it's some of the bands that are lesser known that are really talented. You think people should know about. So I think of teams in Ethereum or DeFi like Open, OPYN. They offer on-chain options for Ether. They also offer an insurance. So if let's say you're lending your stable coins on Compound, and you are earning some interest, you might be worried, what happens if Open fails somehow? What happens if the smart contract have a bug in it? Open is able to cover you kind of like insurance. So anyway, there's folks like Open. We have some really cool talks from, there is the head of the Deep Trust Alliance, Catherine Harrison. So she focuses a lot on the future of deepfakes and how that's going to affect society. So that's a little more like sci-fi, futuristic related, less about, an Ethereum related team. And then I'd say some of the just major highlights are Robert Leshner from Compound is going to do a fireside chat. We've got the guys from Into the Ether. If you listen to the podcast Into the Ether, Eric Conner and Anthony Sassano will speak. I also too, Ryan Sean Adams, I've never seen him speak on stage, but he runs a podcast called Bankless. He's really amazing at framing up ideas about DeFi, about Ethereum, about crypto in general, and kind of tying it to the parallel legacy finance system that we all are used to working with. So anyways, those are some of the people I'm really excited to see. Did someone have a hand up there?
So we'll be taking questions from the audience. Fine taking them while we're talking as well. If anybody's got any questions, just raise your hand. Oh, there you go.
Can anyone hear me?
Yep. Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yep. So let's see. Saint Mestor.
On Mondays.
Do you want to ask a question?
Did you have a question? How about Boss Lady? Do you have a question?
Nope.
Oh, no. Okay, all good. Never mind, Lou. We can keep going.
So excited about the conference. Excited to do some cool things with VR. I think that will be a lot of fun. And let's talk about DeFi. For a bit. Obviously, something that you're really into. What are your thoughts in terms of where we are, I think just from an onboarding standpoint and UX, just to get people to start is so hard. What are you excited about in that area?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I'm really focused on is trying to flip the narrative that we need to be waiting for a better UX, or that we need to wait for Ethereum to scale, or that we're waiting for something nebulous, no one is quite sure what we're waiting for. And I would say this too about Bitcoin applications, anything I've used with Bitcoin. When it comes to DeFi, my argument is that many people have actually not tried the applications. And often, if you talk to those people, they'll say, well, it's hard to use these applications. Maybe you've used MetaMask before, which is very powerful, but a few years ago had a less ideal user experience. So my argument has been that it's all there. The problem is we're not evangelizing it and we're not dog fooding enough. And so one of the things that I've really been trying to urge people to do is try a number of these DeFi applications that are simpler. So I'll give an example. When I talk to my parents who both got an iPhone just a few years ago, I don't talk to them about being a market maker on Uniswap. They have no idea what the hell I'm talking about if I say that. My goal is to ask them questions about, Mom and Dad, what is it that, how do you think about your money? And what sort of legacy finance instruments do you use? So for me, it's really simple. My parents really like savings accounts. They're not super sophisticated with it. So when they say, I like a savings account, I think about, well, you could lend your stable coins in DeFi. And so I quickly try to sort of connect the dots for them to what they know and try to show them that these are very similar concepts, except for one major difference, which is hopefully it's censorship resistant. There's a spectrum there, we all know. We have a long way to go there. You have to truly decentralize these tools. But I think the other part of it is that at the end of the day, these applications need to save you time, they need to save you money, and they need to open up more access to finance. So an example of that, again, is if you are lending your stable coins, let's say through Compound, when you do that, you earn interest. But why is it that I can earn a higher interest rate than I can with the bank. Well, it's because my DeFi app is run by code and the bank is run by a bank. There's overhead, there's utilities, there's lots of employees that have to be paid. And so I guess ultimately, end of day, what I'm trying to say is I really try to push on the idea that most people haven't tried these. And I would say most of the time when I talk to someone who, let's say, is holding Ether, or at least doesn't, you have to be open to the Ethereum ecosystem. I can often find very quickly that, hey, they've never tried an application. And if you haven't tried it, how can you say that the user experience isn't there yet? I don't know, does that help at all, Lou?
What do you think in terms of, you mentioned savings? Do you have any favorite places where you would tell your parents to go?
Yeah, I think the easiest onboarding right now there's two wallets. One wallet is Argent. It's very like dummy proof and easy to set up. It basically gives you these very elementary steps and makes sure that your wallet is backed up. There's also Dharma. So both of these allow you to deposit fiat and then start earning interest through DAI. And so I'd say I start there. I think about those two wallets. They allow you to do one very simple thing. You convert your dollars, the fiat dollars, into digital dollars. I don't talk about DAI with my parents if I show it to them. I say, these are digital dollars. Now, if my parents were going to put their lifetime savings into it, I would warn them and talk about all the risks suddenly, but especially when we're testing this out at first with folks. Beyond using a wallet, I think a lot about...
In terms of the risk, what interest rate do you think you can get, from those, you were just talking about wallets to start, but, they're offering savings as well.
Yeah.
What interest rates?
And
you think it compensates you for?
So before, yes, it did. Right now, no. The rates are absolutely awful. What happened? I think most of you are probably aware of this, but the way that I try to connect the dots of what's happened over the last few weeks is we had Black Thursday. Maker had huge issues with liquidations. DAI became under collateralized, and then Maker voted to lower the rate, the stability fee for Ether, so that ultimately there would be a lower supply of DAI out there. So anyways, what's happened is, think of it in terms of the world that we know in legacy finance. If you lower all of these rates, suddenly it's not very appetizing to lend your money. And so right now on Compound, you can lend DAI for 0.5%. This is something that I expect to be resolved in the coming weeks, or at least a month or so. Once Maker raises the rate to something like, let's say, 4% for the stability fee, which is, if I take out a loan, that's the rate that I'm paying, 4%. 4% that leaves me at least 4% of spread to pay someone as a lender. So suddenly we're going to see DeFi rates get a lot more competitive again. And then when the stability fee goes higher, now we have even more room. So if it goes up to 8%, now you have more room to pay lenders, and then all of the other competing lending platforms will follow that. So anyway, that's my hypothesis on that. I would welcome. I'm sure someone might debate me on that, but that's how I think about it.
And how do you think? Onboarding is one piece of it, but it's also, we have to build stuff that people want in order to go mass market. So what are your thoughts on how we get from where we are today to kind of mass adoption of DeFi?
Yeah, obviously it's a very hard problem to solve, and I don't have all the answers to this. I think my very simple solution is we need to be using these applications, and we need to help everyone to learn to evangelize them. And you can take lessons from Bitcoin, I count myself as a part of the Bitcoin community as well. Why has Bitcoin become a household brand? Because those who have held Bitcoin never give up any ground. They do a tremendous job of, defending their beliefs and, for better or for worse at times, arguing on behalf of, their value prop. So I think that Ethereum really needs to learn, as a community, I think we need to be a little more bullish on like what it is that we offer to the world. I think we need to be, better evangelists. To top it off, I think we need to show. My goal is not to talk normally to people about here's why DeFi is important, and let me talk to you about a bunch of ivory tower mental gymnastics about it. My goal is to show you. My goal is to hear, how do you think of money? How have you managed your finances? What is your life experience? Let me connect the dots to what exists in DeFi that might appeal to you, and let me actually show you how that can save you time and money.
That makes sense. And how do you think about, the evolution of Ethereum impacting that? Do you think, is ETH2, is that coming? Will that have a big impact? Do we need to wait for that?
Yeah, there's no doubt Ethereum 2 delivering this year, or at least, picking up with phase 0. That's great for us. We're headed towards faster transactions in the long term, which I think is the simplest way of thinking about what will people benefit from. If I use a DeFi app, I want to get to a point where I'm not doing all these different MetaMask transactions and thinking about the gas price and doing all these things that really kill the user experience. However, my argument, again, goes back to, I think we need to be better about evangelizing what it is that we use, and we need to show folks. Today, if this was the end of the road, I think that there's enough there. I have definitely sold shittier softwares in my previous lifetime of careers than what DeFi is. DeFi is incredibly easy to use depending on what you're using. There are other parts of it that are a little more complicated, and again, that's where my focus is. I'd also mention you should check out Chris Black. I think he does incredible videos on how you can use DeFi, and he's very upfront about all of the risks. I think we don't want to repeat the ICO era and have people not understanding risks. I think with DeFi it works. We're not promising the moon to anyone, but at the end of the day, you have to be very honest and upfront and say, these are all of the risks that I can think of. These are things you should be conscious of.
Alex he just raised $20,000 in a personal token offering. And for that, he's giving up 15% of his earnings for the next 3 years. And so, I thought that was super interesting. It certainly went for Alex. He's going to use the money, to move from Paris to San Francisco. And do you have thoughts on personal tokens? I think that's super interesting, and obviously the uses can be infinite.
Yeah, I'm definitely not an expert on personal tokens, but I think what he did is really cool. And I'm obviously not thinking about the risks that he took in doing that. I'm not thinking about the fact that whatever government maybe you didn't go to college. The ability to raise money and have others bet on you, that's radical. I thought that's what Bitcoin and Ethereum were trying to deliver on in the first place, was this sort of like capital efficiency, being able to move capital very easily and freely across the world. And I don't know how he guarantees that he pays you that 15%. And so I recognize, as I look at that, I say that's really cool. But if someone says to me, should I invest in that? I'm like, well, first, you should never listen to me in terms of investment advice. Second, you should be cautious. There's something there that could go wrong. But I have known Alex for a little while, maybe 6 months. And if there's anyone who can pull that off, he is a very committed and hardworking person. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's also he's very personable. He's very out there on social media.
Yeah.
So obviously that really helped. So there's some uniqueness to it, and I think at this point there aren't smart contracts that are guaranteeing his income. So right now in the early stages, I think we're more just kind of taking his word about it.
Exactly.
One of the other projects I'll touch on, and then again we'll open it up for if there are any more questions from the audience. But another project that's really emerged over the last few weeks, it seems interesting, is PiDAO.
Oh yeah, PiDAO. Yeah, that's been. Okay. So PiDAO for me is another example of legacy finance being potentially eaten by DeFi, smart contracts, Ethereum in the future. So PiDAO, the idea is, I think the best equivalent is like an ETF. You are able to ultimately, so they have one Pi currently available. And the idea is that it has Bitcoin in it, it has some Ether in it, and a few other like digital assets. So you're able to gain exposure to multiple digital assets. And you're able to do that because this DAI, PiDAO, is though is, think about it this way. First off, it's hard to create a Pi or an ETF that performs well. You need to model something that works in real life, or you need to let it play out and tweak it over time. If you can have Pis, though, that are performing well, or think of it as like a stock that is performing well, you can start to stack those Pis inside of other Pis. So you're essentially, you're able to take really powerful, new synthetic DeFi assets, and you're able to stack them within one another and create even more powerful DeFi assets. So yeah, I think PiDAO is one where I look at it and I say, I'm not quite sure how this is going to perform, and I would definitely love to see it perform for maybe 6 months. But most of the time, what I do is I buy just a little bit of exposure because
So that's great. Is open up one more time, see if anybody in the audience has any questions. Raise your hand. You've got a question. Going once.
Anybody?
Going twice.
Oh, over here. Fred?
So I
There you
actually could give the audience a participation option if you guys are ready to go ahead and answer questions.
Yeah. So I think over here, Fred, you have a question?
Fred,
You want to move closer to the stage?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
All right, now your hand, I can see who you are.
Yeah, you sound great. There you go.
Are you in
Hey, there you go, Fred. Over there in the corner.
I'm trying to figure out what's the distinction between just holding traditional.
Can you talk a little louder, Fred? It's a little hard to hear you. Maybe move a little closer. Whoop.
Okay.
Fred,
Yep.
you have a megaphone. You should be able
Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's
there
good.
you go. Okay.
Now you sound great. Go ahead. Nice to meet you, Fred. Oh, he might be muted.
Trying to figure out what the difference is.
This is exactly what when I first looked at it, I thought, well, what's the difference? Like, why the hell would I even want it? One of the most obvious differences is the exposure of Bitcoin and Ether. So, like, we all know it's for us. Like, we all know how to buy some Bitcoin. It's easy for us. But to be able to stack between synthetic assets, I think it's very unique to find out. Another thing goes back to some of the core benefits of using DeFi. I can be in any geo, and I can gain access to PiDAO as long as I've got the internet. I've got the ability to skip any sort of KYC, and then there's no minimum. That probably the no minimum is the thing that, as someone who I can't say like I never worked on a trading desk, I don't have some long career working in legacy finance, but I think we're all very familiar with the fact that there's a lot in the legacy finance and requires a minimum amount of money. You can put in as little as one DAI. Does that help, Fred?
Yeah, still confused with the stacking the pies themselves, but looking